Greetings, peace, shalom, family. Once again, it is your man, Saint Renaissance, and welcome to TRE. Brand new year and a brand new podcast. In a sense, I have been taking a break away and had to do some inner work, I'll say it like that, and was not always easy. I wanted to get out and say so much, but I think the break time off was well used. And I had a concern that I've watched for almost 378 days now going into effect. And I was just wanting to watch it and get enough information before I started to spout my belief system and the steps for fighting what I call the isms of life. The isms. Yeah, the isms. Isms is a suffix that's put at the end of a word, okay? And when you hear of an ism, it means a control or a belief, a discipline, even behavior of the word that preceded it. So it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. Depends upon the intent of the individual. And there's so many isms that are being thrown out in today's news cycle. And I'm not going to sit here and try to piggyback on it, but I do have some isms that I like, such as optimism, passivism or activism. I like those words because they mean I can engage to do things to improve my quality of life. And then there are some other isms from imperialism, from Marxism, communism, and of course the word everybody's hearing, fascism. And the difference between those optimisms and those other words I mentioned earlier is that the other ones have an intent to control you or the individual by fear. That's the difference. And when this ideology is pressed upon an individual, if you noticed, just going back to last year up until now, every day the news report or some social content creator or some other voice is telling you about the tragedies that are happening in quote unquote our democracy and how it's falling and we're losing grip on society. And I realized, I was like, oh my goodness, the same way they're using fear to control us, the media is using this to control views and gain momentum or try to gain some cultural differences to thwart the enemy. However, I want to attack that ism, I don't have to say what it is, with what I call story time. And I like to tell stories, so as I prepared for how to fight isms and win, I needed a story that would chronicle and give you details on small things we can do that are opposite of what I've seen done for 370 plus days, because talking about it, promoting it, whatever your take is, it doesn't stop the attack. But the story I'm going to tell you is about a guy named Jehoshaphat. And what's so interesting about Jehoshaphat was his great-great-great-great-grandfather was a Lion of Judah. They called him King David. And David was a warrior. You know that. He was a fighting man. And his other great-great-great-great-grandfather was Solomon, who fought against the powers that be, but the difference was he used wisdom. So with Solomon and David being in his lineage, he was a king that was supposed to be able to rule and handle whatever problems came about. And this day, in particular, he got a warning. The warning was the Ammonites, the Moabites, and these other little small group from Mount Seir, that they were coming to wage war against him. But let me tell you about Jehoshaphat just a little bit to give you some background. the children of Israel had settled in, they had their lands, their homes, their crops, and they were doing well for themselves, but they were a peaceful people. Okay, you get where I'm going with this. They were not ones to get out there and want to go in and conquer places and make it fit its rule or its way of living. They let everyone do what they did while they followed and worshiped Yah. And when Jehoshaphat got the news, this shocked him. He got worried. He was in fear. He was like, oh, what are we going to do? He did have an army of a sort, but like I said, they were peaceful people. They weren't running around trying to siege and take things that weren't theirs. So long story short, he goes into a panic and he was like, okay, we got to call all the children and we got to gather together and we got to talk about this problem we're facing. And they all come together and they decide, okay, we're going to do a community fast and prayer. And we're going to ask Yahweh to give us the means by which to defend ourselves. And so, even though he was feared foe, he decided to pray and get together with the other individuals. Because let me share one other little tidbit. It was more of them as a group than the armies that were coming against it. So Jehoshaphat got together, and what shocked me was he prayed a prayer out loud in front of the people, and he was like, yeah, you know, you are the God of our ancestors, and you've always fought for us, and you've always led us, and you led us to this land right here where we are right now. And even when we were leaving Egypt and those people were living in this village or this area, rather than march out and go by them, we skirted around them just to avoid any type of interaction. See, that's how peaceful Jehoshaphat was, because King David had done all the slaughtering. He didn't have to do that anymore. So, and then he says something that I want you all to understand, where we who are living in this ism right now, you think you have no power. And that's what he said. He said, Father, we have no might. What are we to do? How are we to proceed? Tell us, what shall you do? And then he brought the prayer to an end, and a gentleman in the crowd who was of the priest, the Levitical order, he spoke. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, if you feel what I mean. And he just knew at that moment he was supposed to say something. And his first thing was the opposite of what we're doing right now. Rather than going on news media and saying, well, oh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, they're doing this, they're changing this laws, they're writing this order, they're doing this, they're not following the rule. Rather than do all of that, he said, tomorrow we must prepare to go to war. And the verse, I got to read this to you directly. And the verse, it says, listen to me, all you people of Judah and Jerusalem, and you, Jehoshaphat, who's the king. He exclaimed, the Lord says, don't be afraid. Didn't I say fear was what ism feeds off of? Now watch the next line. This is where you might want to get your shout on, or you might want to say, hey, I got to share this video, because this is the only thing that we have not done collectively and as a group. He said, do not be paralyzed by this mighty army, for the battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. Or Yah, as I like to say, my Elohim. See right there? He said, it is not for us. There's nothing that we can do. We don't have an army like they do. We don't have the billionaires like they do. We don't have the quote-unquote influence in the media, and we control everything and we own everything. We don't have it, do we? But he said, do not be paralyzed. See, he knew something, that when Yah was speaking through him and said, the battle is not yours, it's the Creator. That means something that was impossible was about to be made possible. And that's why I say, you know what, now it's time now. This message has been in my spirit for about 3 days now, family. Just just marinating, and I feel so compelled because I think this video is going to be different. So I will ask you, share this with somebody else, because you know how the algos work. But if I get 20 people to watch it and they share it with 20 other people, and then those 20 people share it with another 20 people, then we will be sharing the living bread, because that's all I'm here to do. I'm not going to preach to you. I'm not going to be like, well, this Hebrew word. I'm not going to get into all the dynamics and nuances, because right now the best thing I can say is do not be paralyzed. Now, here's the third and most important part of the story. They got up the next day and they got ready to go and engage with their enemy who was on the way. So Jehoshaphat was thinking, all right, we're going. The battle is not ours, it's Yah's. And he started to talk to some of his other leaders, and he was like, hold up. Before we go out, we're not going to put the foot soldiers in front. We're not going to put the mighty warriors in front. It was like, we're going to put the songsters and the choir, we're going to put them in front. They're going to lead us into this battle. Who goes into battle with the choir? You go into battle with the soldiers, am I right? But somehow he knew that that was what needed to be done. And so they got together and the choir got in the front and they started to sing praises to Yah, and they began to give up glory. And there was a spirit that took over the people as they were marching towards their enemy, who was mightier than them, stronger than them, more vicious. But it didn't matter, because at the same time that they were marching forward, singing praises, giving joy, and being exuberant, not knowing what was happening, at the exact same time in the camp, the Ammonites and the Moabites, somehow, some way, a spirit of chaos and confusion descended upon the camp. Chaos, confusion. Pay attention. Because as we see what's happening with the isms around here right now, what they do, they've gotten us scattered. And there were so many leaders that came before me and they were killed. They were literally killed because the poor whites and Hispanics and Chinese and blacks were getting together. And it was like, oh, no. Because see, the people who are quote unquote in power have no power. Their only power is fear, the illusion, which is why I wrote this book. It's called Fear, the Greatest Show on Earth. And I wrote it and published it in 2020, pandemic time. Who was the leader? Got it. And this book tells us that false evidence may appear real. But if we go a little further down the road, we will find out the truth. So, the truth that will set us free was setting Jehoshaphat and the children of Israel and Yehuda free while they were marching along singing and praising. And the people who were going to fight them and just take everything from them began fighting amongst each other. They fought against each other so much that the two larger tribes took out the smaller tribe completely. Then they started fighting each other until every single one of them lay dead upon the battlefield without even leaving. And I heard another moray tell me it's called the Valley of Jehoshaphat. And I started thinking about, that's what's happening in this present moment. That's why we don't have to get up, because the battle is not ours. It belongs to Yah, the Elohim, the creator of all. And that's why as we sit around, and a lot of us African Americans, FBAs, PAN, whatever you're going to call yourself, I'm not going to get into them titles and that fight and that dispute, because that has nothing to do with the fact that loving Yah, following his covenant, not fearing, believing in his word, praising his name, led them to a victory. When they got to the battlefield, Jehoshaphat looked out and the other people, and everyone else was dead. And the guy told him the next day, he said, you weren't going to have to fight. I told you that. And what was so epic about the story And it culminates this fighting the ism without fighting. They saw the people laying out on the field and they had so much plunder. So they began to loot and find garments, jewelry, other expensive items. And it took them 3 whole days to gather up all the things that these people had brought to go into battle with that were of expensive value. You kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. But if they had gone out there with their swords and their spears and they were like, okay, we're going to slay them because, you know, our King David and our grandfathers and forefathers, they did it like this. And so, right. See, in that season, they had to fight that battle a different way. And that's why I decided that this video is imperative to be made now and shared. I promise you, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Let it keep going. Let it keep going because this is not about me. This is about us. That's why when K. Lamar did his little Super Bowl thing last year and they lost their minds right then, do you know why? They are not like us. And we are not like them. So we can't fight them. You can go out and do the protest. They don't care. You can go out and boycott this place and that place. They don't care. Have you seen them? They're still making commercials as if everything is normal. But it's not. There's a shift in the atmosphere and there's a shift in the spirit of this country, and it's taking over sooner rather than later. And to help you fight the ism, there was 3 things, the 3 P's that Jehoshaphat taught me in the story. First, when he began to have fear, he prayed. The next morning, they got up and they prepared. And then when they were marching, they praised. Prayer, prepare, and praise. Use those things to be a part of your day. And if you want to chronicle this story for yourself, it's 2 Chronicles chapter 20. And when I studied it in my inner working, I was just magnified at how gracious that we in our sins and our sinful nature can have a Father, a Elohim, a Creator that would fight a battle for us because we had already been through so much. And the only way you can fight this battle and win is Psalm 91. This is the end of the message because this is what I want you to focus on. Read this for a few days. Let it saturate in your spirit. Read it in a different version. Read a different parallel. Use different ways just to see the difference in the language, but get the meaning. Because Psalm 91, when it starts up, it says, he or she who dwells. That means to stay there. Don't go anywhere else. He who dwells in the secret place, this is where they can't attack you. If you can get the isms out of your life, they want fear to control you. But if you know, Jehoshaphat and those guys didn't even pull out a sword. See, when you dwell in the secret place of the Most High, he said, you shall abide under the shadow of his wings. Sun's out, it's beaming and burning, but it's not burning you because you're under the shadow of his wings. Then he says he will be our refuge and our fortress. A fortress is tall walls, impenetrable. You're not getting through, you're not getting to us, we're protected. So thank you for this experience. And that's why this year going forward, everything I do will be about creating an experience, a moment that can't be repeated or duplicated. You can play this message a year from now and it'll still be fresh then because it'll be in that moment. But I love you, family, and I implore that we go to prayer in the secret place and stay there. Some of us have not been doing it. We fell out of practice. We're like, we don't go to church. Yeah, I may not attend a particular building because I know I am the church. I know that I am the temple. And I know inside of the temple is a secret place. And I dwell there. And for 370 plus days while they were doing that, I was dwelling in the secret place. That's why I can come forward with a message saying, fight the isms, we win. Once again, my name is Saint Renaissance. And my metaphysical studies taught me that saint means one who loves Yah more than he loves himself. And Renaissance, is the rebirth of holy culture. That is why I feel so delighted that we could share this moment. Now you know what to do next. Share it. Until the next time, peace. Shalom.